Late last week, the Trump administration issued new guidelines for how the U.S. could reduce restrictions on where people can go and what they can do. It's a three-phase approach. It would start with certain businesses allowing employees to return in limited numbers, and it would eventually lead to schools, gyms, and stadiums being allowed to completely reopen. But these are federal suggestions, not federal law. And President Donald Trump says it'll be up to individual states to decide what to open back up and when.
Police in Canada say a man has shot dead 16 people in a rural community in Nova Scotia. Reports say one police officer was killed. The 51-year-old suspect is also dead.
Neiman Marcus Group is preparing to seek bankruptcy protection as soon as this week, sources told Reuters, becoming the first major U.S. department store operator to succumb to the economic fallout from the coronavirus outbreak.
This is AP News Minute. A gunman and 16 others are dead after the worst mass shooting in Canadian history. Authorities say a man disguised as a policeman shot people in their homes in Nova Scotia province.
The United States has seen more than 760,000 confirmed cases of the virus. According to Johns Hopkins University, more than 30% of those cases are in New York State alone. And though the governor says New York is past the peak of new cases and deaths, coronavirus is still very much a threat. And as far as New York City goes, the mayor of its 8.5 million people says all parades, concerts, and rallies have been canceled through the month of June.
President Trump has tweeted that he is to sign an executive order to temporarily suspend immigration into the United States. He said the decision was taken in light of the attack from what he called the invisible enemy.
Virgin Australia has become Asia's biggest victim of the air travel industry's ongoing crisis. The country's second biggest airline had reported an annual loss for 7 straight years, even before authorities around the globe began restricting movement.
Unconfirmed reports say North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is in fragile condition after heart surgery. However, South Korea said Tuesday no unusual activity was detected in the north. Ed Donahue, The Associated Press, with AP News Minute.
And it made headlines and history this week because at one point, U.S. stock market oil prices were negative. On Monday afternoon, oil was at minus $37.63 per barrel. What this meant was that there was so much supply in the oil market that the world was running out of places to store it, and oil producers were essentially paying people to take their oil barrels. It's the first time that's happened since oil futures started trading in the U.S. stock market in 1983. Crude prices did turn positive again yesterday, though they were still incredibly low. No one knows how long they'll stay so low. And that's a concern, especially for American oil companies, because they can't make money. Industry analysts say several hundred oil companies will file for bankruptcy by the end of next year if prices don't climb back up.
The UN has issued a stark warning that the coronavirus pandemic could almost double the number of people suffering from acute hunger. The agency estimates famine could affect over 250 million men, women and children.
This is AP News Minute. Iran says it launched a military satellite into orbit. There's no immediate independent confirmation. The U.S. says such launches advance Iran's ballistic missile program. President Trump says he'll sign the new nearly $500 billion coronavirus aid package. The Senate passed the measure. It would send money to a small business payroll fund, hospitals, and testing.
European Union leaders are to hold an online summit to work out a financial rescue package for countries which have been hardest hit by the pandemic. The German Chancellor, Angela Merkel, has said that Germany should be prepared to pay more into the EU's budget to help foster economic recovery amidst this pandemic. And she told Germany's parliament the pandemic itself was still in its early phases.
Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden held a virtual Earth Day town hall. He was joined by former Vice President Al Gore, who called President Trump the face of climate denial.
Herd immunity is a term that factors into our first story today. It's when at least 60% of a population becomes immune to an infectious disease. This can happen in one of two main ways. Either people recover from a disease and then become immune to it, or an effective vaccination prevents people from getting sick. There's no vaccine for COVID-19. It could be another year or more before one comes out. And doctors don't know yet if someone is immune to coronavirus once they've had it, or how long they'd be immune. But a top disease specialist in the nation of Sweden recently told CNBC that the effects of herd immunity are being seen around the capital of Stockholm.
First human trials of a coronavirus vaccine in Europe have begun. Hundreds of volunteers will get the vaccine. 2 of them were injected on Thursday in Oxford. Scientists say they're already working with manufacturers to produce millions of doses later this year. American lawmakers have passed another relief bill worth $480 billion for small businesses and overwhelmed hospitals, as new figures put the jobless total at 26.5 million. It's hoped employers will be encouraged to keep staff on their payroll.